An independent inquiry into New South Wales' devastating floods that more than 5 people and displaced thousands has been announced by the state government. Key points. An interim report is due by June 30th. An interim report is due by June 30th. Public consultations will take place in flood-affected communities. Public consultations will take place in flood-affected communities. The acting Premier says the inquiry will operate alongside flood recovery efforts. It will be led by recently retired Police Commissioner Michael Fuller and Planning Commission Chair Professor Mary O Kane, who was the state's inaugural Chief Scientist and Engineer from 2008 to 2018. Tasked with looking at the state's preparedness, recovery and response to the recent flood emergency, the inquiry comes as those impacted accuse the government of abandoning them. The catastrophic floods broke many records across the state's river systems, with the cleanup bill expected to top $240 million, according to the Insurance Council of Australia. An initial report is due by June 30th, with the inquiry wrapping up by September. Acting Premier Paul Toole said the time frame allowed NSW to quickly get on with the process of prevention. "We have always said we will take whatever action we can to improve our management of natural disasters, and this inquiry is an important step in that process," Mr. Toole said. "No two floods are the same and there is no formulaic response. But when it comes to natural disasters, we can never be too prepared." Flood-ravaged communities have started the daunting task of removing debris and waste. Communities have started the daunting task of recovery, clearing away debris, mud and built-up black sludge, in a process expected to take months. Just last week, caravan, fridges and pontoons were among the tons of waste still washing up along the Hawkesbury River. In the hard-hit region of northern NSW, it is estimated that more than 3,000 homes in the Lismore local government area have been assessed as not habitable. At the height of the crisis, many residents waited for hours on roofs due to a lack of emergency personnel and equipment. Remarkable stories emerged of locals in Tinnies conducting multiple rescues, but while they have been praised for their efforts, locals argue the over-reliance on volunteers needs to change. M to mute, left and right arrows to seek, up and down arrows for volume. Watch 10 seconds. 10s Lismore locals abuse ADF personnel over perceived lack of action. Victims have also been left asking why untrained people were left to fill the critical gaps in flood rescue. The ABC has also been told of breakdown in communications infrastructure, including problems with reaching 000. Mr. Toole said all these issues would be considered by the review, but stressed it would not impact the work that is underway to help people rebuild their lives. "The inquiry will sit alongside our flood recovery efforts," he said. "We'll continue to put everything we can into ensuring we get impacted people and communities back on their feet as quickly as possible." Many rivers across the state peaked at record levels. The inquiry is required to report on the causes of and factors contributing to the frequency, intensity, timing and location of floods. The causes of and factors contributing to the frequency, intensity, timing and location of floods, preparation and planning by agencies and the community for floods in NSW. Preparation and planning by agencies and the community for floods in NSW. Responses to floods, particularly measures to protect life, property and the environment. Responses to floods, particularly measures to protect life, property and the environment. The transition from incident response to recovery. The transition from incident response to recovery, including housing, cleanup, financial support, community recovery, including housing, cleanup, financial support, community engagement, and longer-term community rebuilding. Retired Police Commissioner Michael Fuller and Planning Commission Chair Mary O Kane will lead the inquiry. It can consider and make recommendations if warranted in areas including the safety of emergency services and community first responders. The safety of emergency services and community first responders, current and future land use planning and management and building standards in flood-prone locations across NSW. Current and future land use planning and management and building standards in flood-prone locations across NSW. Appropriate action to adapt to future flood risks to communities and their surrounds. Appropriate action to adapt to future flood risks to communities and their surrounds. Coordination and collaboration between all levels of government. Details of public consultations and where submissions can be made will be published soon.